Okay, let's get into this. We're about to explore two really unsettling mysteries, cases that, well, they've baffled investigators for years. They leave behind this trail of chilling questions and really no clear answers. We've pulled together the key details, some insights from our source material to a YouTube transcript, just to help you get a well-informed understanding of these truly perplexing events. First up, a really shocking kidnapping. It unfolded in South Korea back in 1991. It centered around a 9-year-old boy named Lee Hyung-ho. It's one of those stories where a seemingly ordinary day in Seoul just turns into an absolute nightmare. Can you walk us through those initial terrifying hours?
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? How quickly the mundane, the everyday can just spiral into something terrifying. So, January 29th, 1991, Hyung-ho, he lived in Gangnam, the affluent district. He was seen playing alone on a park swing set. Apparently, an observer actually noted this, thought it was a bit unusual. Usually, he played with friends after school. By 8 p.m., his father, Lee Yushi, was a financial executive, realized his son wasn't back yet. They did the usual things, searched the usual spots, called friends. Then they reported him missing. And that set everything in motion, this whole chain of events.
And it escalated almost immediately, didn't it? I mean, an officer was actually at the Lee household taking a statement. When the phone rang, what happened then?
Right. So Lee Yushi picks up and he hears this voice, described later as just odious, hissing at him. It said, "Lee Hyung-ho is with me. You have 48 hours to raise a ransom of 70 million won. Await further contact and do not involve the police. Do you understand?" And Yushi, what else could he do? He just said yes.
Wow. But despite that really chilling warning, the Lees made, a courageous and immediate decision. What was their next move? And how did the police react?
Exactly. Despite that explicit threat, Lee Yushi immediately told the officer who was right there. Seoul investigators, they jumped on it. They actually nicknamed the kidnapper the Snake. They sprang into action. They kitted out the Lee's home with recording gear, monitoring devices, using various covers, disguises, and then they just had to wait for the Snake to contact them again. The stakes were just incredibly high.
The audacity of the Snake, though, it really comes through in that next contact. How did the kidnapper manage to stay one step ahead, even with the police involved?
It's pretty amazing, actually. The morning of January 31st, the Snake calls back and right away accuses the Lees of involving the police. The officers who were listening in were apparently astounded, just shocked by his knowledge, especially given all their precautions. But Lee Yushi insisted they hadn't. His stepmother even swore on her life. The caller hung up, caused total panic, for the police and the Lees. Turns out, though, it was just a bluff. Their insistence, it worked. The kidnappers seemed convinced they were playing along.
Okay, that's where it gets really interesting. So an hour later, the Snake calls again, tells them, deliver the 70 million won to a parking lot near Seoul Kimpo Airport. The Lees, obviously desperate, load the cash into their car. Can you describe that just incredible, almost absurd goose chase that followed? What does that tell us about him?
Oh, it's just profound psychological torment. From the airport, the Snake sent them on this endless loop. Seoul City Hall, then a theater on Chunmuro Road. This went on 16 times, constantly changing locations. But the kidnapper himself never showed. The Lees got home just frightened and dismayed, totally exhausted. You see, this wasn't just about the money. It was a demonstration of absolute control, a cat and mouse game. It was designed to, systematically break the family's will, test their limits. It showed someone incredibly manipulative, cold-blooded.
Right. So after this failed first attempt, how did the Snake's methods change? And what impact did the police advice have on the family's hope, which must have been fading?
Well, the next morning, new instructions came, this time for the stepmother. Drive the ransom to a prominent newsstand, 2:30 a.m. sharp. Again, a surveillance team went with her, discreetly, but the Snake was a no-show. Again, then a full week passed. February 5th, contact resumes, but this time the instructions shifted. No more phone calls, only text messages and handwritten notes. The first text led them to this secluded part of the city. There they found a note, 2 bank account numbers, Handmill Bank, instructions. Transfer 20 million won to each. The police advised them, look, just transfer one payment, which they did. They attached a note too, kind of implying, the rest when Hyung-ho is back.
Oh.
And the tragic irony, the Snake didn't reprimand them, and the family took that as proof the boy was still alive.
Oh, the desperation. You just can't imagine it. Another week goes by, and then they get what would be the final tragic instructions. What happened during this last attempt, and how did the police, despite everything, suffer such a critical blow?
The Snake contacted them again, this time directed Hyung-ho's grandfather, Lee Russell, to go under Seoul Bridge on 88th Avenue, 8 p.m. The Lees, they demanded, "We need to speak with Hyung-ho first," but the kidnapper just aggressively shot them down. Warned them, basically, obey if you value your son's life. So, scared into submission, they followed instructions. Went to the southern section of the Empire Bridge, placed a money bag there, but the bag, it was mostly bait. Only the top layer was real cash. The rest was 8 balls, basically a negotiator's trick, their last shot. Then, around 10:45 p.m. police surveillance, their vigilance just slipped for a moment, and the snake drove right up to the bridge, grabbed the package, and fled. Before anyone could apprehend him, they were caught so off guard, the police didn't even get the license plate.
That's just heartbreaking what happened right after that, and what terrible discovery followed.
Within the hour, Lee Yushi got the final call. "It seems you don't want to get your son back. This is the last time I'll contact you." Lee Yushi pleaded, but the snake just hung up, and he kept his word. No more contact. Days later, a bank manager in Central Seoul reported a man fleeing. He'd been refused access to one of the frozen accounts, but the description, too vague. And then came the truly heartbreaking discovery. Hyung-ho's body, found in a drainage channel near Han River Park. His eyes, nose, mouth covered in black duct tape. Hands and feet bound with nylon rope. Cause of death, suffocation. The coroner surmised. Well, he was likely killed on the very day he was abducted, which means the snake had taunted the family for 44 days, knowing Hyung-ho was already dead the whole time.
The injustice of that is just profound. So, given the huge investigation, the sketches, the voice recordings, thousands questioned who ended up being the main suspect, what evidence pointed their way, and what complicated things.
Yeah, the investigation was massive. Numerous composite sketches were made. Those voice excerpts of the snake were played everywhere. Over 400 suspects arrested, nearly 30,000 people questioned, and the number one suspect, shockingly, it was Hyung-ho's own 29-year-old maternal uncle.
His uncle.
Yeah. The rumors suggested his motive was maybe revenge, to punish Lee Yushi for divorcing his sister, denying her custody, the evidence against him. Well, voice analysis from the National Institute of Science in Korea showed a 92% similarity to the snake's voice. Plus, the uncle was in dire financial straits, and the names on those ransom note bank accounts, they belonged to his friends.
That sounds pretty damning.
It does, but here's the complication. The uncle apparently wasn't even in Seoul on the day of one of the proposed money exchanges. That led investigators to think maybe it wasn't just one person. Maybe multiple kidnappers, a team perhaps working together. But without solid, irrefutable evidence linking him directly, the case just stalled.
So if they couldn't build a watertight case, what did that mean for justice for Lee Hyung-ho?
Well, under Korean law, the statute of limitations for this specific crime expired in 2006. Will never be brought to justice. Legally. In 2011, Lee Yushi spoke about it, expressed disappointment, obviously, but said he valued answers more than justice. He just wanted to ask the killer why. He concluded the motive was just violently jealous, despicably greedy, inflicting this wound that could just never heal. Hyung-ho's case, it's been adapted, into TV dramas, movies. It was the basis for that 2007 film, Voice of a Murderer. It really underscores how some cases, no matter how much effort goes in, just remain tragically unsolved.
Okay, let's shift gears now. We're moving to a different kind of disappearance, but equally perplexing. This one from Canada, 2008. The case of Marilyn Bergeron. Can you tell us a bit about Marilyn, her background, what was going on before she vanished?
Sure. Marilyn Bergeron, she was born in Saguenay, French-Canadian, described as, bright, talented, had musical talent, fluent in French and English, even dabbled in Spanish, Russian, had a media degree. She moved to Montreal alone around 2005, worked various jobs, sales, freelance sound editor. She tried focusing on the finance industry for a bit, but then dropped out to pursue a career as a flight attendant. Told her parents it was an opportunity to travel, explore the world. Her parents, though, they described her as somewhat indecisive and reckless.
Right, but it seems like something profoundly shifted for her not long before she disappeared. She developed this really strong fear of Montreal. What was that about? How did it affect her?
Yeah, absolutely. Early 2008, Marilyn called her mother, explained she no longer felt safe in Montreal, but she was unwilling, or maybe unable, to explain why. Her parents invited her to stay with them in Quebec City. What was meant to be a short visit quickly became permanent. When her parents asked if she was ready to move back, she was emphatic. Said she never wanted to return to that city as long as she lived, and apparently burst into tears when they pressed her on it.
Her parents must have been desperate to understand. She denied it was drugs, or debt, or relationships gone bad. But when her father pushed a bit more, asked if she'd been hurt or attacked. She had quite a striking reaction, didn't she? What did she say she was dealing with?
Yes, that was a very, very telling moment. When her father asked if she'd been hurt or attacked, she just went quiet. Then he asked specifically if she had been raped, and she just erupted into tears and fled the room. But then she denied being attacked, said what she was dealing with was much, much worse than that. She became more and more withdrawn after that, stopped communicating with her parents almost entirely. Her father tried finding therapists for her, but those efforts were, well, in vain. Whatever it was consuming her. And that phrase, much, much worse, it suggests something incredibly traumatic, maybe beyond what anyone could easily guess.
It really sounds like she was carrying this immense unspoken burden. Okay, let's talk about the day she vanished. February 17th, 2008. She went for a walk, and then she appeared on CCTV. What did that footage show, and what did that specific detail about her actions suggest?
Right. Morning of February 17th, 2008, Marilyn tells her parents she's going for a walk. She was wearing suede boots, a long black overcoat with gray fake fur trim, only took her credit card, left all her other ID at home. Just after 11 a.m., CCTV captures her at an ATM on Boulevard de Lumière. She tried to withdraw $60. The request was denied. But the footage is chilling because it shows her looking over her shoulder several times, as if she was worried someone was following her. That detail immediately suggests fear, right? The possibility she felt watched adds this layer of maybe deliberate caution, not just someone casually using an ATM.
And then there's this gap. The next 5 hours are a complete mystery. She was next spotted at 4:03 p.m. buying coffee in Saint-Romain, a small town south of Quebec City. The barista later said she had an air of sadness but seemed incredibly anxious. And that was the last time anyone saw or spoke to Marilyn. What's so baffling about the initial investigation is the lack of leads, right? Despite her being seen in public places. What does that suggest?
It's incredibly perplexing. There was a renowned French-Canadian journalist, Claude Poirier, who got involved. He actually visited the ATM site, and he deduced, just from the angle Marilyn was looking, that she was probably looking at a car parked on the street, which suggests maybe someone gave her a ride from the ATM to that cafe in Saint-Romain, and that person, if they exist, could hold the key. Yet, despite being last seen in, well-lit, busy public places, supposedly with dozens of people around who witnessed her final moments, not a single person approached the police with any information.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Did people just not connect the sightings later, or was there something else going on?
The case then went cold for a few years. But in early 2010, there was a potential breakthrough, wasn't there? In Hawkesbury. What was that lead about? Yeah, Claude Poirier again. He got a call from a man claiming he'd seen Marilyn in Hawkesbury, which is south of the Ottawa River. He said he recognized her from the ATM footage, claimed she'd been living there peacefully for almost a year, was in a relationship, and seemed totally unaware she was officially missing. So officers went to Hawkesbury, showed her photo around, particularly at a local diner, and apparently many locals claimed they recognized her. One even said she'd eaten there multiple times. Detectives searched the area thoroughly for over a week, but found no sign of her. They concluded she must have moved on.
So from 2010 to 2017, the investigation basically stagnated. And this led to a pretty significant disagreement between Marilyn's parents and the police, right? The parents were convinced of foul play while the police leaned towards voluntary disappearance. How often does that happen, that kind of conflict?
It's a constant tension, unfortunately, in missing person cases, especially when the evidence is thin. Marilyn's parents, they voiced their discontent. They didn't buy the best efforts claims. They believed the authorities just refused to treat it as a criminal case, like murder or trafficking. Their theory was that Marilyn had witnessed some kind of violent or disturbing crime back in Montreal, that this made her a target of, quote, very powerful, very frightening individuals. They believed she was forced to flee, was tracked down to Quebec, followed to Saint-Romain, and then silenced her forever.
That's a terrifying theory.
It is. But a police spokesperson dismissed these claims publicly as pure fantasy. They empathized with the parents' grief, of course, but said there was likely a much more simple explanation. So you have this divide, the police need to follow evidence, which, for a long time, didn't strongly point away from voluntary disappearance, while the family feels something much darker happened.
Yeah, that conflict is crucial. Then, late 2017, an old college friend, Jonathan Gauthier, came forward. What did his account reveal about Marilyn's state of mind, and how did it impact the case?
Jonathan Gauthier said he'd talked with her about her problems shortly before she vanished. He remembered finding her one evening just lying in the dark at her apartment, just thinking. Her mood apparently lifted briefly at a party they went to, but then she became intensely anxious, begged him to drive her home, and apparently wept all the way. Jonathan, like her parents, assumed she'd witnessed a crime, maybe been attacked, but she denied both. Repeated that phrase. It was much, much worse than anything Jonathan suggested. She told him, "You can't even imagine what I've been through." Jonathan even got the feeling. He said he felt that if Marilyn told him what was wrong, his own life would somehow be at risk too.
Wow. That adds a whole other layer. The idea her secret could endanger others.
Exactly. And his account, hinting at this really profound, maybe dangerous secret, it definitely reignited media interest. The investigation started to pick up steam again.
And speaking of renewed interest, October 2022, Canadian investigators announced another possible sighting, again in Hawkesbury. What was this new lead? And what interesting detail came up that led to a new theory? Yeah, another Hawkesbury lead. This time, a couple from the town reported something that happened back in 2009. They said they were woken up in the early hours of a cold December morning by someone calling at their door unexpectedly. It was a young woman, visibly upset, and she was wearing only a light jacket, a white t-shirt, jeans, and high heels, which is really odd for a Canadian winter. But apparently she didn't seem to feel the cold. She asked to use their phone, couldn't get through, apologized, then asked for directions to a nearby landmark, declined a ride saying it was close enough to walk and she wouldn't be out in the cold for long, then left quickly. 3 months later, the couple saw a newspaper article about Marilyn and instantly recognized her as the woman at their door.
But there was one difference, right?
Exactly, the only difference. The woman that night had been blonde. Marilyn wasn't blonde when she disappeared, but her family confirmed she often changed her hair color, so this led to a new theory. Maybe Marilyn changed her hair color deliberately, as a disguise, if she feared being followed. So the case is still open. We have these conflicting theories. Marilyn's family remains convinced it was foul play. Canadian detectives, while not ruling it out, seem much more open to a theory of voluntary disappearance. They acknowledge that, many people do simply walk away from their lives for various reasons, financial issues, personal conflicts, just general unhappiness. What stands out to you here, especially the family's heartbreaking position?
Well, the family's perspective is really poignant, isn't it? They said, if she has a new life and wants to be left alone, we will respect that. Which raises the difficult question, is it possible she just walked away? Maybe. But, like our sources suggest, the more you dig into this case, especially with Jonathan Gautier's account, those cryptic warnings from Marilyn herself, it feels like something deeper, darker might be going on. Marilyn's disappearance, well, it may well have a much more sinister explanation than just deciding to start over.
So what does all this mean for you listening? These two stories. The chilling lack of justice in Lee Hyung-ho's case, and this persistent, unsettling enigma surrounding Marilyn Bergeron. They remind us that sometimes, even with extensive details, dedicated investigations, the most compelling questions just remain unanswered. They really highlight these profound aspects of human behavior, the limits of our ability to truly know what happened, and just the nature of disappearance itself.
Yeah, and consider this unsettling thought. Maybe some mysteries are never meant to be solved. Not because of a lack of effort, but maybe because of sheer cunning or just the uncooperative nature of the circumstances themselves. How much can we ever really know about another person's secret burden, their intentions, especially when they vanish without a trace?
This has been a deep dive into some truly unsettling sources. We really hope you'll join us for another one soon.